Care what y'all think about me because I know the real mother.
But he's not better than the.
This 90 days relationship, this guy they call Michael, he really try a lot. Honestly, the guy really have the heart and patience with this lady called his wife, called Angelina, abi? Yes, it's right, Angelina. The guy try you, you know, easy you. The guy get mind. The guy has strong for this one.
I know the real mother.
But he's not better than the private investigator, though.
Because
And we can
you know
we
why?
can
We didn't
all.
have enough time to get it all. This ain't, he ain't had enough time. This is 2 weeks investigating. We're going home. Y'all enjoy. I don't care what y'all think about me because I know the real mother.
But he's not better than the private investigator, though.
Because
And we can
you know
we
why?
can
We didn't
all.
have enough time to get it all.
Welcome back. Michael Ilesanmi had always known that life with Angela Deem was a roller coaster, but he never anticipated how tumultuous it would become once they were no longer together. Their breakup had been explosive, filled with accusations and threats, but Michael was determined to move on. Angela, however, wasn't willing to let go so easily. She launched a series of legal battles against Michael, determined to prove that he had been unfaithful, deceitful, and a scammer. Angela's campaign against him was relentless, but Michael had something she didn't: truth and integrity on his side. As the accusations piled up, Michael found himself fighting not just for his reputation, but for his future. Angela's claims were severe. She accused him of cheating with younger women, scamming her out of money, and manipulating her emotions for his gain. She was convinced that Michael had used her to secure a visa to America, only to abandon her once he got what he wanted. The accusations were hurtful, and Michael felt the weight of them pressing down on him. Despite their rocky relationship, Michael had once cared deeply for Angela, and to see her so hellbent on destroying him was painful. But Michael wasn't going to let Angela's fury destroy his life.
The way this lady treat this guy, the way this lady treat this guy, like say, no be person. So they, even one of the housemates in that show, talk say, even she never treat her dog like the way this Angelina they treat Michael. But luckily, finally,
Does anything tell you that Michael is cheating on Angela in any way?
I've got 160 pages of reports. To answer your question directly, no, there's not.
Okay.
Good.
I don't care. I don't care. You said talk. Why did you leave there?
Send me back home.
That's the last time you'll say that.
He knew that if he was going to come out of this battle unscathed, he needed to clear his name once and for all. That's when he decided to take legal action of his own, countering Angela's accusations with a defamation lawsuit. He knew that Angela was driven by anger and hurt, but that didn't give her the right to smear his name with lies. Michael hired a top-notch legal team, determined to prove his innocence in court. The legal battles dragged on for months, with each side presenting their case. Angela's accusations became more elaborate as time went on. She claimed that Michael had a secret life in Nigeria, filled with younger women who were only interested in his money. She insisted that Michael had been scamming her from the start, using his charm to manipulate her into sending him money and...
at the end of the day, at least the Michael is free from all the whole accusation where Angelina don't be accused am since. The guy is a free man, and the guy also keeps his reputation intact in the US. And the guy is a free man now. He can live his life freely after they find out that he's innocent from all the whole dragging, accusation, that lady. That lady treated that guy very bad. Honestly, very, very honest bad. Just, you can also watch. Just watch and listen.
Going to let Angela's fury destroy his life.
Does anything tell you that Michael is cheating on Angela in any way?
I've got 160 pages of reports. To answer your question directly, no, there's not.
Okay.
Good.
I don't care. I don't care. You said talk. Why did you leave there?
Send me back home.
That's the last time you'll say that.
He knew that if he was going to come out of this battle unscathed, he needed to clear his name once and for all. That's when he decided to take legal action of his own, countering Angela's accusations with a defamation lawsuit. He knew that Angela was driven by anger and hurt, but that didn't give her the right to smear his name with lies. Michael hired a top-notch legal team, determined to prove his innocence in court. The legal battles dragged on for months, with each side presenting their case. Angela's accusations became more elaborate as time went on. She claimed that Michael had a secret life in Nigeria, filled with younger women who were only interested in his money. She insisted that Michael had been scamming her from the start, using his charm to manipulate her into sending him money and gifts. Angela's evidence was flimsy, relying on hearsay and circumstantial proof, but she was confident that her fiery testimony would be enough to sway the judge.
After an exhaustive study of you, look, I've got a 189-page report. Almost every single thing that's ever been mentioned about you on the internet. It took a staff of about 5 investigators to dig all the information up that we have. So, if there's anything that you want to disclose, now would be a great time to do that.
No.
Michael, on the other hand, kept his composure throughout the trial. He knew that he had nothing to hide and trusted that the truth would come out in the end. His lawyers worked tirelessly to debunk Angela's claims, presenting evidence that contradicted her narrative. They showed that Michael had never engaged in any suspicious financial transactions and that the women Angela claimed he had cheated with were merely friends or acquaintances. The most damning piece of evidence came when Michael's legal team introduced the testimony of Angela's own private investigator. Angela had hired the private investigator in a last-ditch effort to find dirt on Michael. She wanted to catch him in the act, to prove once and for all that he was the man she believed him to be. The private investigator, a seasoned professional, had spent weeks trailing Michael, interviewing people in his life, and digging into his past. Angela was confident that the investigator would find something, anything, that would confirm her suspicions. But when the private investigator took the stand, the courtroom was shocked by what he had to say. Instead of revealing incriminating evidence against Michael, the investigator testified that Michael was, in fact, innocent.
I want the private detective to prove that I'm wrong. I want it to be wrong. I want to be so wrong. He has no idea.
Michael, were you aware that Angela hired a private investigator?
No.
He had found no evidence of cheating, scamming, or any other wrongdoing. According to the investigator, Michael was a straightforward, honest man who had been unfairly targeted by Angela's vendetta. The investigator's testimony was the final nail in the coffin for Angela's case. As the verdict approached, tension filled the courtroom. Angela was visibly agitated, fidgeting in her seat, her face a mix of anger and disbelief. She couldn't fathom that the man she had spent years with, the man she believed had betrayed her, could be innocent. When the judge finally delivered the verdict, clearing Michael of all accusations, the courtroom erupted in applause. Michael had won. He was free of Angela's accusations, and his name was cleared. But Angela wasn't ready to accept the outcome. As the applause continued, she stood up and began shouting at the judge, at Michael, at the private investigator, at anyone who would listen. She accused the investigator of lying, of being bribed by Michael's legal team. Her outburst was intense, filled with the kind of rage that had become her signature on 90 Day Fiancé. But this time, no one was listening. The courtroom had already moved on, focused on congratulating Michael on his victory. Michael remained calm as Angela's screams echoed through the courtroom. He had seen this side of her many times before, but now it no longer held any power over him. He was free, not just legally but emotionally as well. Angela's attempts to ruin him had failed, and now it was time for him to move on with his life. As Angela stormed out of the courtroom, still yelling accusations and insults, Michael felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had fought hard for this moment, and now it was here. His life was his own again, and he was ready to start anew. With the support of his friends and family, Michael knew that he could finally leave the past behind and look forward to a brighter future. But even as Michael moved on, Angela's rage simmered. She wasn't one to back down easily, and in the days that followed, she continued to spread rumors about Michael, trying to tarnish his reputation in any way she could. She appeared on talk shows, gave interviews, and even took to social media to voice her displeasure with the verdict. But the more she ranted, the more people began to see her for what she truly was, a bitter, angry woman who couldn't accept that she had lost. Michael, on the other hand, embraced his newfound freedom. He started working on projects he had put off for years, reconnecting with old friends, and even considering new relationships. The trial had been a turning point in his life, a moment when he realized that he didn't need to prove himself to anyone, least of all to Angela. He had been vindicated, and now he was ready to focus on his happiness. As the months passed, Angela's fury slowly faded into the background. The public grew tired of her constant outbursts, and even her most loyal supporters began to question her motives. Michael, however, continued to thrive. He was finally free to live his life on his terms, without the shadow of Angela hanging over him. And as for Angela, she was left to face the reality of her actions. She had tried to destroy Michael, but in the end, she had only succeeded in destroying herself. Her reputation was in tatters, her credibility questioned, and she was left alone, screaming into the void while Michael moved on to a life filled with hope and promise. For years, Michael Ilesanmi had been trapped in a relationship that was more about endurance than love. From the moment he met Angela Deem, he had been drawn to her fiery personality and bold confidence, believing that these traits masked a heart that, deep down, would appreciate the love and loyalty he was willing to offer. But as time went on, Michael began to realize that his devotion to Angela was being taken for granted, his love weaponized against him in ways he could never have imagined. Michael's efforts to show Angela his love were constant and unwavering. Whether it was through words of affirmation, small gestures of affection, or his willingness to compromise on almost everything, Michael tried to make Angela feel secure in their relationship. He would wake up early to call her, knowing how much she valued their daily check-ins, even if it meant losing sleep himself. He avoided situations that could be misinterpreted, going out of his way to reassure Angela that she was the only woman in his life. Despite the miles between them, Michael always made sure that Angela knew he was thinking of her, missing her, and planning for a future where they could finally be together. But Angela rarely, if ever, reciprocated these efforts. Instead of meeting Michael's love with kindness, she often met it with suspicion and anger. It seemed like nothing Michael did was ever enough. If he called too much, Angela accused him of being needy. If he didn't call enough, she claimed he was cheating. If he tried to surprise her with a thoughtful gesture, Angela would find a way to twist it into something negative, accusing him of trying to manipulate her. Michael was caught in a lose-lose situation where his love was both demanded and rejected in equal measure. One of Angela's closest friends once remarked, in a moment of brutal honesty, that Angela treated Michael like a dog, a comment that cut Michael deeply. It was true, in a way, that Michael was often treated as though his feelings didn't matter, as though he existed only to serve Angela's needs and desires. Angela's friend noted how she would bark orders at him, expecting immediate obedience, and how she rarely, if ever, listened to what Michael had to say. To Angela, it seemed that Michael's role in the relationship was to be silent and compliant, always ready to jump at her command, but never allowed to express his own thoughts or feelings. This dynamic was painfully clear in their arguments, which had become more frequent and intense over time. Whenever Michael tried to speak up, to explain his side of things or express how he was feeling, Angela would cut him off mid-sentence. "Shut up, Michael," she would scream, her voice laced with frustration and disdain. It didn't matter what the argument was about, whether it was something trivial or something serious, Michael was never allowed to finish his thoughts. His voice, his opinions, were consistently disregarded, as though they held no value. The silencing was more than just a way for Angela to win arguments, it was a method of control. By refusing to let Michael speak, Angela ensured that the narrative of their relationship remained one-sided, her side. Michael's feelings of love, hurt, frustration, and desperation were all kept bottled up, never fully expressed, because Angela simply didn't allow them to be. Over time, this began to take a toll on Michael's spirit. He became quieter, more reserved, afraid that anything he said might trigger another outburst from Angela. The man who had once been full of life and energy was now subdued, his light dimmed by the constant barrage of negativity from the woman he loved. Despite all of this, Michael remained committed to Angela, believing that if he just tried harder, loved her more, and proved his loyalty beyond any doubt, she would finally see how much he cared for her. He wanted so desperately for Angela to understand that his love was genuine, that he wasn't like the men who had hurt her in the past. But no matter what he did, Angela couldn't or wouldn't see it. She was too consumed by her insecurities, too blinded by her fears, to recognize the love that Michael was offering her. The culmination of this toxic dynamic was the court case where Angela accused Michael of cheating, scamming, and manipulating her. As the accusations mounted, Michael felt the weight of all the years he had spent trying to prove his love to someone who refused to believe it. In the courtroom, surrounded by lawyers and witnesses, Michael couldn't help but reflect on all the times he had been silenced, all the moments when Angela had chosen to doubt him instead of trust him. This trial was the ultimate test of his love, but for the first time, Michael wasn't fighting to prove himself to Angela, he was fighting to prove himself to the world. When the private investigator Angela had hired revealed that Michael was innocent of all the charges, a wave of relief washed over him. For years, he had been trying to show Angela that he was a good man, that he loved her, and that he was worthy of her trust. And now, in the most public way possible, that truth had been validated. Michael wasn't the man Angela had painted him to be. He was a man who had been wronged, who had been silenced, but who had finally been given a voice. Angela's reaction to the verdict was predictable. She lashed out, furious that the world wasn't seeing things her way. But Michael no longer cared about her outbursts. For the first time in years, he felt free from the chains of Angela's control. He had won, not just in court, but in life. He had proven that he was innocent, that he was worthy, and that he didn't need to be silenced any longer. As Michael walked out of the courtroom, his head held high, he knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter in his life. He was done trying to prove his love to someone who refused to see it. From now on, Michael would focus on loving himself, on finding someone who appreciated him for who he was, and on living a life that was free from the toxic dynamics that had once defined his relationship with Angela. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. He knew that healing from the years of emotional abuse would take time, but Michael was ready to take the first steps. He was ready to speak up, to share his story, and to show the world that he was more than just the man who had been silenced by Angela Deem. He was Michael Ilesanmi, a man who had fought for his freedom and won. And as he looked towards the future, he knew that it was bright, filled with possibilities that he had once thought were out of reach. No longer was he the quiet, compliant man who let Angela dictate his life. He was now a man who had reclaimed his voice, his dignity, and his future. And that, more than anything, was the greatest victory of all. In the end, Michael's triumph wasn't just about winning the court cases. It was about reclaiming his life, his dignity, and his future. And as he looked towards the future, he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he was strong enough to face them head-on. Michael had been through the storm, and now he was finally free to enjoy the sunshine.